does Pixar look for when choosing an idea for a film?
So choosing an idea. Well, it seems to me if you look at her films, there's two main things. The first is a world, a very, very rich world, a world that offers you a lot of characters and a lot of danger. When you think of superheroes, toys, the ocean, the world of the dead, the inside of your brain, these are worlds that are immediately very rich. Like you can immediately imagine, you almost reel. When you think of the log line of Inside Out, there could be 50 different elements they could use in the brain or in the
Oh
soul
yeah.
or mind of the person that they didn't even put in. Just the scrap list of that movie must be, exciting and enticing. So one part of it is really a world that is rich and you can explore and has some danger or conflict built in. But then the other side is to really find emotional stakes. My favorite example is Toy Story because you start with, oh, the world of toys, a child's toys. And that's so exciting. It's such a rich idea. And, kids would relate to it. But when you think about it, the movie, the real logline or what really makes us love that movie is what happens when a child's favorite toy is thrown aside for a newer toy. And that is,
Brutal. It's brutal.
brutal. Yeah,
Uh,
it's heartbreaking.
I mean, that song in
It's
Toy Story.
level. It's like Sundance drama. It could be an indie drama. It's like a brother, the unfavored brother, right?
No, that Sundance. I mean, that Sundance. The Toy Story 2 song about being
Oh,
left on the side of the road and stuff. I'm like, oh, like you just are devastated listening to that. Well, I mean, listen, what is it? The first 4 minutes or 5 minutes of Up is probably the best representation of a human relationship I've ever
oh,
seen on film. The history of
amazing,
I mean, it's
amazing.
amazing. And
Yeah,
how do you go
I
in and how do you go in with Up and pitch Up? Like we're gonna do a movie about an old dude and a Boy Scout in a house with balloons in it, and it's just like the marketing department must have had a field day. They're like, you want us to sell like little dolls of an old angry guy, which they did, by the way. But
which they did. I mean, Up. I know it started as something very, very, very different. I don't remember the details, but it started as something very, very different. And I wonder, like, and they sort of talk about it sort of in the book, like, because that image of the house with the balloons,
it's
it's
amazing.
such a great image. It's so amazing. And I bet, I could be wrong, that they had that first. And they're like, okay, so how do we justify that? And all of that beautiful opening is sort of almost the only explanation I can imagine for someone tying a balloon and being so connected to their house. You know,
Right.
right? That ridiculous thing of flying away with your house becomes so natural when you see that opening and what that house means and everything that comes from that.
Yeah, I mean, they have done what Hitchcock said he wish he could do, which is like literally play a piano key and hit an emotion. If you want him to cry, you hit this button. If you want him to laugh, you hit this button. Pixar
Yeah.
films do that in a way like, I mean, personally, one of my favorite Pixar's is Coco. Like, I absolutely love Coco and how they did it and the music and the visuals. It was just all so beautiful. And you're just like, I see myself as a grown man, like tearing up constantly over these movies. Wally, I mean, Jesus, the guy doesn't even talk. And you completely are invested in what happens to this little trash can.
Yeah.
It's like they're so brilliant in the way they do it. It's remarkable.
My favorite is Toy Story 3. The ending of Toy Story
Oh,
3, I just collapse.
no, absolutely. I mean, it's I mean, and to be fair, like we always talk about Pixar's hits, and they definitely outweigh the ones that didn't do as well. And my like one of the ones that I saw besides Cars 2, which we not to discuss, but The Good Dinosaur. I
Yeah.
thought Good Dinosaur failed not
Yeah.
only in the box office, but it failed every major Pixar thing. Like when I saw Good Story, A Good Dinosaur, I was like, this isn't a Pixar film. This feels like something else. I don't understand. What went wrong on that in that movie, in your opinion?
I mean, first off, I want to say that I do cry twice in The Good Dinosaur. Like,
there's moments, there's glimpses,
moments.
there's glimpses of Pixar, but it's definitely not a full package.
So the Pixar formula, like the structure they have, is really balancing three different stories in each movie. One is action adventure. It's Indiana Jones. It's Pirates of the Caribbean. It's this life or death. It's joy riding like a tower of boyfriends to get to the train. It's all that crazy stuff. Then they have a bonding story, which is, it's Woody and Buzz. It's Carl and the boy and Russell, the Boy Scout, right? It's two people who have deep emotional reasons why they can't coexist. Woody and Buzz can't coexist. One doesn't understand that he's a toy, and Woody, when he sees Buzz, he sees his irrelevancy, right? They can't be together until they grow. And then the third thing is this sort of emotional change, this sort of education or redemption plot that a character goes inside themselves. And I think The Good Dinosaur minimized a lot of the action adventure. Like, there's some of that there. I remember the flood. I remember there's these paradoxals that are evil. But it doesn't have that same level of tension and action that some of the other movies have. And I think it makes it feel a little slighter. And the same thing with the bonding plot. There's these great moments with the human child. Those are my favorite moments. But I don't think it has the same sort of complexity and richness that some of their other movies create between their conflicting characters. And then when you get to the third marker of growth, I remember Arlo is the name of the dinosaur, I think. Yeah. And he had that thing about making your mark or overcoming his fear. And that's sort of what the whole thing is hanged on. But I think, again, it's not something as almost as mature, I want to say, or as complicated as some of the other examples, like Woody learning to give up his spot, or Joy learning to accept sadness into her life and into Riley's life. Like those things are adult emotions. Those things are sort of things adults deal with. Mike in Monsters University failing, giving up on his life dream, So I think, and Arlo's arc is a little more, I'd say, oriented towards children. Like as a teenager, as an adult, his arc doesn't resonate with the same strength.
Yeah, as we're talking, I'm going back in through my head. I'm like, okay, Pixar films, and I'm just clicking them off, and the majority of them do have those characters that can't get along, or they can't live with each other, or like even WALL-E has Eve, who they are opposites. They're generally opposites, either opposites and they can't get along, and generally opposites don't get along at the beginning, and they figure a way out to come towards the end. Incredibles, I'm not sure about. I know Cars had.
Incredibles less so has that.
Yeah, but that was the first kind of outside the box, outside of the brain trust, because they brought Brad Bird in from the outside to do that. So that's why it makes sense that film was kind of has its own thing. But even Cars with Mater and
sole credit on his films.
I'm sorry?
When Pixar films have like 7 credited writers between story and screenplay, Brad Bird is the only one where he has the sole credit.
Right, exactly. So his stuff is a little bit different than the other Pixar films, but everything else, like generally speaking, like in Coco, his uncle, well, his dad eventually, but oops, oh, spoiler alert. But those kind of but those characters, and you're right, and there is generally always massive action adventure, even in Toy Story. I mean, there's constant adventures, and but the adventures going downstairs or out a window, but it's still the stakes are extremely high. WALL-E had a lot of that as well. I mean, it's you start analyzing it, because I know a lot of people listening right now have most people listening should have at least seen one, if not all, Pixar films. They're just those kind of films. But it is, when you start to deconstruct them this way, it starts taking on a little bit different light.